Hi everyone, get comfortable and let me take you into today's story. I didn't have to wait long to know exactly what I would hear. Shame, dishonor, curse, cancer. Those were always the words that poured from their mouths whenever my existence, my freedom, was mentioned. The clerk at the courthouse desk helped me shuffle through a mountain of paperwork, but every time she lifted her head, her face grew darker, as if a storm was gathering. Each detail of my case only made the horror clearer. My father's previous wives had died by the age of 23, their kidneys failing after endless pregnancies. My own forced wedding ceremony was scheduled for today, and the thought of it squeezed my chest with terror. "Wait here," she said in a calm but strained voice before hurrying out of the office. Moments later, she returned with a judge. Without even looking up, he read my petition right there in the clerk's office. "Granted," he declared, his voice at once a sentence and a lifeline. "An emergency protective order goes into effect immediately. A full hearing will be held in 2 weeks." I clutched the paper in my hands like a piece of driftwood in a storm. Limping from pain and fear, I stepped outside. The shelter they had arranged for me was 12 blocks away. But after only 3 blocks, dread sank in. I remembered they might not have space. A call to the front desk confirmed my fears. "We're completely full," a cold voice said. "We can put you on the wait list for Thursday." Thursday. 3 long days. 3 days with nowhere to hide, where every shadow on the street felt like a threat. That's when I remembered Ms. Rodriguez, my teacher. The one who once accidentally left a drawer unlocked and gave me a glimpse of a world I hadn't known existed. 3 buses, 2 hours of travel later, I stood outside Jefferson High. It was Saturday, so the hall should have been empty, but her car was parked out front. She often came in on weekends, quietly grading papers, enjoying the peace and quiet. I found her in her classroom, bent over a stack of notebooks, red pen in hand. She looked up, froze, and immediately dropped the pen. "Oh my God," she gasped, rushing toward me, her face a mix of alarm and compassion as she took in my injured feet, torn nightgown, and the protective order clutched in my hand. "Sit down. Don't move," she said softly, pulling out the nurse's first aid kit. As she cleaned the glass and blood from my feet, real tears, bitter and uncontrollable, finally came. Not the fake ones I'd forced out in the school bathroom before, but tears of fear and relief. "They tried to force me to marry today," I sobbed. "He's already killed 2 wives. I have the protective order, but the shelter's full, and they're still looking for me." Ms. Rodriguez grabbed her phone and dialed Child Protective Services. The voice on the other end was official and cold. "We need more proof of immediate danger. A protective order based only on testimony isn't enough. Was she physically harmed by her family?" Ms. Rodriguez's face hardened. "She has glass in her feet from running barefoot, cuts, bruises. Injuries from fleeing don't count." The voice interrupted. "We need evidence from the family itself." My phone rang again. Ms. Rodriguez answered. "Hello?" she said, her face draining of color. "Mr. Habibi, your daughter." A calm, steady male voice responded. It was my father. "She's sick. She needs her medicine. We're very worried." Ms. Rodriguez hung up and turned to me. "How did he know you were here?" "My phone," I whispered. "Of course. They were tracking me." "Wipe it. Factory reset. Now," she instructed. Then she made more calls to supervisors, social workers, legal aid. The answer was always the same. Without visible, immediate family violence, their hands were tied. That's when we heard the pounding on the door. Ms. Rodriguez quickly locked it and pulled the blinds shut. "Quiet," she whispered. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, louder with each passing second. Male voices in Arabic, then English. "We know she's in here." My father's cold, controlled tone cut through the air. "She's sick. She needs help." The door rattled, first gently, then with more force. "I'll call 911, Ms. Rodriguez whispered, but I grabbed her hand. "Wait, let me try first." I rolled up my sleeves, revealing the circular scars from past training and the bruises from that morning's fight, bracing myself to resist if it came to that. The next morning, Ms. Rodriguez brought me to the Child Protective Services office. She walked beside me with a calm determination on her face, but I could see the tension in her eyes. "You need to tell them everything in full detail, so they completely understand the scope of the situation," she said as we stepped inside. I sat down on the hard chair, my hands trembling, my heart pounding as if it were trying to break free from my chest. I began recounting all the years of forced lessons when I was made to study and obey cruel rules, the beatings and injuries, the psychological pressure, and the attempts to coerce me into my father's marriage plans, which knew no limits. The social workers listened in silence, jotting down every word in their large notebooks. They nodded, occasionally checking notes on their tablets, and I felt the weight of responsibility settle on them with every confession. When I finished, one of the women shook her head slowly and said, "We've encountered similar cases before, but yours is particularly complex due to the cultural context and your family's influence in the community." Her words sent a chill down my spine, because I realized this wasn't just a formal meeting. It was a real battle for my life and freedom. They explained that ordinary girls' shelters were not suitable for cases like mine. The consequences for my safety could be catastrophic. A special program was needed, where girls from cultural communities could remain safe without facing the risk of forced marriages or family pressure. "We will find a place for you," one of the women said with a firm but gentle voice. "You will be safe, but we must act quickly, without wasting a single minute." While they contacted other agencies, I sat there, my fists clenched, thoughts racing. What will happen to Anna? Can my younger sister escape? Will they manage to get away? Every detail mattered. Every call from my family, every threat they made, every manipulation. The social workers carefully recorded each detail and watched for any attempts by my father to back up fabricated information with documents or false statements. After a few hours, Ms. Margaret, the emergency coordinator, arrived. She looked tired, but her determination was evident in every movement. "We need to take you to a hospital, treat your injuries, and make sure you receive the necessary medical care," she said, helping me into a wheelchair. The nurse quickly cleaned the small shards of glass from my feet, applied sterile bandages, and prescribed antibiotics to prevent infection. We tried to find a shelter that could take me immediately, but almost all were full. "No space available," Margaret kept repeating, but she didn't give up. She kept calling over and over, refusing to abandon any opportunity to find a safe temporary place for a girl under threat due to cultural pressure. Her persistence gave me hope that escape was possible, even if it required extraordinary effort. Meanwhile, Ms. Rodriguez stayed close, calming me, helping me pack essentials, providing hygiene items and necessary documents. Her presence gave me a sense of safety when I feared I could be taken at any moment. She didn't leave my side while Margaret actively searched for a safe place where I could be moved immediately. Finally, we were informed about a shelter led by a woman named Theodora. She was a retired nurse with years of experience housing girls in difficult cultural and threatening situations. When we arrived, I was greeted by a warm, almost home-like atmosphere. A small apartment equipped with surveillance cameras, alarms, high fencing, and a clearly organized space that radiated order and security. "You will be safe here," Theodora said in a calm voice, inspecting my bandaged feet and making sure I felt comfortable. Ms. Rodriguez helped me unpack the bare necessities and stayed until the very end, ensuring that I was truly safe. She gave me her personal card. "You can call anytime, day or night." That night, I barely slept, alert to every sound, every step beyond the walls. Every noise reminded me that even the smallest carelessness could cost my freedom. I realized this was only the beginning. The fight for my safety and freedom was just gaining momentum. Every step, every action had to be carefully planned. But with people ready to help me by my side, I finally felt that I was not alone in this battle. Hope and the sense of support gradually replaced fear, and I felt I could take one more small step toward a safer future. The next morning, Theodora helped me set up a completely new phone, with a number known only to her, Margaret, and Ms. Rodriguez. We sat at the large table in the living room, spreading out a map of the route and notes, and discussed every possible scenario if someone approached the house or started following me. We went over in detail how to change my daily routes to school and the store, which neighbors could be trusted in an emergency, and who to be wary of. "Tomorrow we'll officially register you at your new school," Theodora said. "With the protective order, you can no longer return to Jefferson High. It's far too dangerous." The thought of starting over terrified me. New faces, new classes, new rules. But staying visible at my previous location was even more dangerous. My first test of resolve and caution came the following Monday. The doorbell rang at 6 in the morning. On the security camera, I saw a familiar face. My aunt, accompanied by 2 cousins carrying large containers of food. "We know she's in there." I heard my aunt's voice over the intercom. "We just want to talk." Her grandmother is worried Theodora didn't answer. She immediately dialed the police non-emergency line. "Yes, there is a person under a protective order on my property. Thank you." A brief encounter followed. The aunt and cousins left before the patrol arrived. But one cousin, not giving up hope, held up a large sign to the camera. "We love you." Come home, it was the first sign of psychological pressure. Manipulations and emotional provocations directed at me. That same day, Margaret delivered news that made me clench my fists with both excitement and fear. My father had hired a lawyer and claimed that I was under continuous external manipulation, demanding my return. "Can they really just do that?" I asked, barely holding back panic. "Theoretically, they can try," Margaret explained. "But with the protective order and child protective services involved, it's practically impossible. Still, be prepared for a fight. They will try to pressure you by every possible means." On Tuesday, I received a huge bouquet of flowers at the doorstep, along with a note. "Our hearts are broken. Forgive us. Love, Mom." Theodora photographed the flowers and note before disposing of them. "Document everything," she reminded me. "Every contact, every attempt at influence, every message." It was a lesson that even the smallest acts of manipulation had to be recorded for future action. On Wednesday, school started at my new location. Due to special arrangements for privacy, my records remained protected. The school counselor was already aware of my situation, assigned me an aide, and arranged for lunch in the library if it became unsafe to be in the cafeteria. "We've had similar cases before," the counselor reassured me. "Your safety is our absolute priority." But that sense of security quickly faltered when, after classes, I noticed a familiar vehicle in the parking lot. Not my father's, but one of the trucks used by my uncles. I immediately hid and dialed Theodora's number. She arrived within minutes, standing in front of the car and observing every movement before escorting me to her vehicle. She documented everything on her phone. "We're showing them we see their attempts and we are not afraid," she said calmly. "They will not break us with fear." On Thursday, legal documents arrived. My father had filed an official lawsuit demanding my return, claiming I had been forced to renounce my cultural values. Margaret quickly connected me with a legal aid attorney, a determined and experienced woman named Patricia, who specialized in these cases. She explained the standard tactics used in such lawsuits: appeals to religious freedom, parental rights, and cultural preservation. We began collecting evidence proving the abuse and compiling my own testimony, preparing for any potential attack in court. On Friday, the escalation reached a new level. Theodora woke me very early, her face serious, her eyes alert. "Check your social media, but don't log in. Just look at the messages," she said. She brought her laptop so there would be no trace of my online presence. On the screen was a public post from my father on Facebook. My photo was next to a desperate text. "Help us find our daughter. She is mentally ill and needs medication. She has been taken by people filling her head with lies. We fear for her safety." Comments poured in one after another. Relatives, friends, community members, some even offering a reward for any information. "This is witness intimidation," Patricia said when we called her immediately. He's trying to control the narrative. We need to respond carefully and wisely without giving in to panic. But the harm had already spread rapidly. By noon, the post had been shared hundreds of times. My photo ended up in multiple community WhatsApp groups, with warnings about a sick girl who needs help. Then came the first betrayal that hit me hard. One of the girls from my skills group, my younger cousin Margie, whom I had been trying to protect, posted a response video. She sat beside her mother, mechanically repeating lines taught to her under pressure. "Our parents wanted to hurt us," she said robotically. "She scared us with our own culture. Please, if you see her, help bring her home so she can get help." My heart broke as I watched those empty eyes, realizing the fear and pressure behind those words. Theodora held me tightly as I wept. "They are using everything you love against you," she whispered. "But that doesn't make what you've done wrong. You are doing everything right." On Saturday, a new visitor appeared unexpectedly. The door camera caught a young woman holding an envelope. "I'm from a law firm," she said calmly. "I have documents regarding a minor." Theodora was cautious. "Leave the envelope in the mailbox." "I'll get it." But when I glanced quickly at the woman's profile, I caught my breath. It was my cousin Sarah, 3 years older than me, wearing a wig and a business suit, her stern expression trying to hide her emotions. "Don't go out," Theodora warned, but I was already standing by the window, unable to look away. Sarah raised her eyes, met mine, and for a moment her mask slipped. I saw tears. Then she quickly composed herself, neatly placed the envelope in the mailbox and left, trying not to show weakness. Inside the envelope were photographs. My grandmother looking frail and sad, my little sister celebrating her birthday, my chair at home noticeably empty, my mother crying while preparing a favorite dish. Each image was carefully chosen to make me feel guilty, but the last photo made my heart freeze. There was Anna, returned from the place where she had been hidden, standing with a ring on her finger, her eyes empty and emotionless. On the back was written, "She came home. She's happy. You could be too." I whispered softly. "They're still forcing her to marry him." Patricia cursed under her breath when we called her. "This complicates things." "If Anna retracts her testimony, look her in the eyes," I said firmly. "She's scared and we need to know." On Sunday, the attacks became even more direct. A neighbor of Theodora's reported men taking photos of the house from across the street. They disappeared before the police arrived, but the message was clear. "We know where you are." "Maybe we should move," Margaret suggested during an emergency meeting, reviewing security footage. "Running means surrendering." Theodora shook her head. "We stay. We document. We fight." On Monday, there was a hearing regarding the permanent protective order. Patricia prepared me meticulously, but nothing could prepare me for walking into the courtroom. My extended family occupied one side. Aunts, uncles, cousins, community leaders, all dressed in their best, looking at me with a mix of pity, disgust, and intolerance. It was the moment I felt the full weight of what I had done and what I would still have to endure. On Friday, the tension reached its peak. My mother tried to force me to put on a wedding dress, and I, barely holding back tears, lifted my nightgown just enough to show the scars and bruises on my back, from years of training during Friday morning services and my parents' strict control. Her hands trembled as she took photos on her phone, trying to capture what she believed explains my behavior. "Why didn't anyone see this before?" she asked, her eyes full of anxiety. I thought it was normal, I whispered, realizing now that there were brochures and rules meant to help protect myself. Wasting no time, she called 911. "Several men are trying to enter my classroom. There's a student here in danger. Please hurry." The pounding at the door became more insistent. Then came a familiar, harsh voice. My uncle's. "We have her medication. She's a bipolar schizophrenic. Making up stories. Check the cameras in the parking lot." I urgently looked at Ms. Rodriguez. "I came alone. If they have medication, they brought it with them." She quickly explained the situation to the school security. Mr. Williams, the guard, rapidly reviewed the camera footage. Sirens could be heard in the distance. The pounding and footsteps receded, disappearing down the hall. When the officers arrived, my father had changed, no longer the angry man pounding at the door. In his place stood a concerned father in an expensive suit, holding prescription bottles labeled with my name. "Thank God you're here," he said to the officers. "My daughter is very sick. She makes up terrible stories about our family." The officers separated us for questioning. One stayed with me and Ms. Rodriguez, while two others spoke with my father and uncles in the hallway, checking records and documentation. "She has never taken medication," Ms. Rodriguez insisted. "I've been her teacher for 2 years. Look at these injuries, these scars and bruises." The officer slowly examined my legs. "Cuts and bruises could be self-inflicted," he said cautiously. "If she had an episode, check when these prescriptions were issued." I intervened sharply. "If I'm so sick, why am I not in the system? Why no doctor visits? No therapy?" Ms. Rodriguez opened her laptop and showed the essays I had written for months, documenting family traditions and expectations. They hid the truth between the lines. Cooking lessons, marriage preparation, learning under strict supervision. All of it left traces, which now became evidence. The officer frowned, reading page after page. Meanwhile, Mr. Williams brought the camera footage showing clearly my father and uncles arriving with the prescription bottles in hand. "Anna," I commanded. "Call Anna Mansour. She filed a report yesterday. She knows everything." But when Ms. Rodriguez tried to contact her family, it turned out they had moved to another state early that morning. The phone was disconnected. No address. The trail vanished. My father probably sensed the shift in the situation, because his calm mask cracked. He began speaking quickly in Arabic to his brothers, gesturing emotionally, trying to persuade the officers. "What is he saying?" the officer asked. "He says we need to call the family lawyer," I translated, "and something about a dowry that isn't being returned." That was his fatal mistake, mentioning the dowry in front of the officers. The police officer's face hardened. "Sir, what dowry?" "I misspoke in English," my father said. "Your English sounded fine 5 minutes ago," the officer remarked lightly with a hint of sarcasm. The next hour passed in a blur. Additional police arrived, a CPS supervisor, a representative from the district attorney's office. My father alternated between threats of lawsuits and stories about family honor, while the uncles appealed to religious and parental rights. But the evidence kept mounting. Essays, injuries, fake prescriptions, camera footage, the emergency protective order filed that very morning. This was the moment I first felt the real power of evidence, the support of adults, and my own resilience. I was no longer alone, and even in the darkest minutes of fear, I knew the truth could not be hidden. "We are placing her under emergency protective supervision," finally announced the CPS supervisor, calmly but firmly. A minor who had made truthful and detailed statements about years of abuse and forced attempts to make me marry. My father exploded with rage. His eyes flared and he lunged toward me, shouting in Arabic, unleashing words of dishonor, curses, and family shame. Two officers barely managed to intervene, restraining him as he spat threats about what awaited girls who dared betray the family or disobey elders. Ms. Rodriguez held my hand tightly, trying to calm me while the officers escorted my father away. I felt fear, but also incredible support. For the first time, I felt someone truly cared about my safety. Within 20 minutes, the emergency placement coordinator arrived. A woman named Margaret, tired but determined, clearly called in outside of regular hours due to the urgent situation. She immediately examined my legs, seeing the cuts and scars, and called for medical transport. "We need to carefully treat these cuts," she said, helping me into a wheelchair. "The glass needs to be removed before infection sets in." Ms. Rodriguez squeezed my shoulder, her gaze full of support. "I will go with you to the hospital. You won't be alone for a single minute." The emergency department met us with chaotic energy. Saturday, sports injuries, accidents, and staff shifts left all beds occupied. The nurse quickly triaged me, noticing the glass in my heel and the numerous cuts that needed immediate attention. While she worked, Margaret called every contact she could think of, trying to find temporary placement. "Yes, I understand. No beds available," she said tensely into the phone. This is an emergency placement. The girl is at risk of forced marriage. Regular shelters are not suitable. We need a specialized, safe location. Every call ended the same way. No available beds, no place that could accept a girl at risk because of cultural traditions. Ms. Rodriguez paced the narrow hospital hallway, nervously considering options. There must be at least one open space. What about women's shelters? She asked, glancing at the sad chaos of the hospital. All full. Margaret replied quietly. Weekends are always hard, and families try to bring girls home. We need a truly safe place. The doctor prepared anesthetic to remove the glass from my wounds painlessly. I bit my lip, more from fear than pain. Every minute without a secure refuge was a minute my family could find me and do harm. Wait, Ms. Rodriguez suddenly said. I know a retired nurse. She used to work with the county and handled emergency placements for girls in complex cultural situations. Margaret picked up immediately. Is she certified? Let me call. A few minutes later, Ms. Rodriguez returned, a small but warm smile on her face. Theodora Whitman. She's certified for emergency placements and has extensive experience with cultural adaptation. She can take you today. Relief burned through me as a warm sense of safety washed over me while Margaret began the paperwork. The doctor finished dressing my legs, prescribed antibiotics to prevent infection, and only then could I breathe for a brief moment. But the calm did not last. A message appeared on my phone from an unknown number. You've shamed us all. This is not over. I showed it to Margaret, who immediately documented everything and added, We'll need to change your number and use social media cautiously. Everything is being recorded. The ride to Theodora's house took 40 minutes through unfamiliar neighborhoods, far from my usual environment. Ms. Rodriguez followed behind, refusing to leave until she was certain I was truly safe. The house was modest but well kept, equipped with security cameras on every corner and a tall fence. Theodora met us at the door. A strong woman in her 60s with a sharp, attentive gaze and gentle hands. Come in, dear. Relax, she said warmly, supporting me. She led me to a small bedroom with a lock on the inside. For your peace of mind. She added simply, the windows are alarmed. Motion sensors around the perimeter. Here, you are safe. Ms. Rodriguez carefully helped me unpack my modest belongings in the small room, while Margaret finished processing the paperwork and verifying all the data in the system. Before leaving, my teacher handed me a card with her personal phone number. Call anytime, day or night. I am always here. That first night, I barely slept. Every sound outside the window made me tense. Every passing car could be my uncle or cousin, trying to sneak in to take me home. Every shadow became a potential threat. I clutched the pillow, trying to calm my heart, which was pounding so fast it felt like it would leap out of my chest. At 3 a.m., Theodora found me by the window, sitting frozen. They came for the last girl, too. She whispered, crouching beside me. 3 brothers and the father were standing right at the gate, demanding what's theirs. She smiled sternly, showing determination. The police will be here in 2 minutes. I checked, so for now we are calm. Sunday passed in a blurry stream of safety preparations. Theodora helped me set up a new phone with a number known only to her, Margaret, and Ms. Rodriguez. We practiced different scenarios. What to do if someone approached the house, how to change routes while walking, which neighbors could be trusted in critical situations. Tomorrow you'll need to register at your new school, Theodora said. Under the protective order, you cannot return to Jefferson High. The thought of starting over scared me. But staying in plain sight was far more dangerous than familiar hallways and old classrooms. Monday morning brought the first test. The doorbell rang at 6 a.m. On the security screen, I saw my aunt and 2 cousins. They carried containers of food, their faces sad and tense. We know she's here, my aunt shouted through the intercom. We just want to talk. Grandma is worried Theodora didn't respond and immediately called the non-emergency police line. Yes, there is a person under a protective order on my property. Thank you. They left before the patrol arrived, but one of the cousins raised a sign to the camera. We love you. Come home, the manipulation and psychological pressure began immediately. That same day, Margaret called with updates. Your father hired a lawyer. They claim you are under external influence and demand your return. Can they do that? I asked, feeling a wave of anxiety. They can try, she replied. But with a protective order and CPS involvement, the chances are low. Still, you must be prepared for a legal battle. On Tuesday, a large bouquet of flowers arrived at the doorstep with a note. Our hearts are broken. Forgive us. Love, Mom. Theodora photographed it before discarding it and sternly reminded me, document everything. Every contact, every attempt to influence you. On Wednesday, I began attending the new school. I was registered under special conditions so that all records remained hidden. The school counselor knew about the situation, assigned me a companion, and allowed me to have lunch in the library if needed. We've had similar cases. The counselor reassured me, your safety is our priority. But the sense of security was fragile. After class, I noticed a familiar vehicle in the parking lot. Not my father's, but a work truck belonging to one of my uncles, positioned to track my every move. I quickly hid and called Theodora, who arrived within minutes. She parked directly in front of the truck, accompanied me to her car, documenting everything on her phone. We show them that we see them, she said, that we are not afraid. On Thursday, the mail brought legal documents. My father filed a petition for my return, claiming I had been forced to abandon my culture and religion. Margaret connected me with a legal aid attorney, a determined and confident woman named Patricia, who specializes in such cases. Standard tactics, Patricia said while reviewing the documents. They will appeal to religious freedom, parental rights, and cultural traditions. We will counter this with documented abuse in your own testimony. On Tuesday, the moment of escalation arrived. Theodora woke me up early in the morning, her face stern and serious. Check your social media account. Don't log in, just look on the borrowed laptop. She showed me a post from my father on a public Facebook page. My photo was accompanied by a desperate plea. Please help find our daughter. She is mentally ill and needs medication. She was taken by people who filled her head with lies. We fear for her safety, comments poured in one after another. Relatives, friends, community members, some even offered a reward for any information. This is witness intimidation, Patricia said when we called her immediately. He is trying to control the narrative. We need to respond very carefully, but the damage was already spreading. By noon, the post had been shared hundreds of times. My photo was discussed in community WhatsApp groups, accompanied by comments like, "Sick girl, in need of help." Then came the first true betrayal. One of the girls from my skills group, my younger cousin Margie, whom I had tried to protect, posted a video. She sat beside her mother, clearly reciting pre-prepared lines under pressure. Our parents wanted to hurt us. She scared us with our own culture. Please, if you see her, help her return home to receive care. My heart broke as I saw the empty eyes of the girl, realizing the enormous psychological pressure that had forced her to say these words. Theodora held me as I cried, gently embracing me. They are using everything you love against you. But that doesn't make what you did wrong, she said. On Saturday, an unexpected visitor arrived. The door camera recorded a young woman holding an envelope. I'm from a law firm, she said calmly. I have documents regarding a minor. Theodora was cautious. Leave them in the mailbox. I will collect them. But when the woman turned around, I recognized her profile and held my breath. It was my cousin Sarah, 3 years older than me, wearing a wig and business attire. Don't go out, Theodora warned, but I was already standing by the window. Sarah met my gaze. For a moment, her mask slipped and I saw tears in her eyes. Then she composed herself, placed the envelope in the mailbox, and quickly left. The envelope contained photographs. My grandmother looking frail, my younger sister at her birthday, my empty room at home, my mother crying while preparing my favorite meal. Each photo was carefully chosen to induce feelings of guilt. But the last photo made my blood run cold. Anna had returned from the place where she had been hidden. She stood between her parents with a ring on her finger, eyes empty and lifeless. On the back, a note read, "She returned home. She is happy. You could be too. They brought her back," I whispered. They will still force her to marry him. Patricia muttered a quiet curse as we spoke on the phone. This complicates things. If Anna withdraws her testimony, Look her in the eyes, I interrupted firmly. She is scared and we need to know it. On Sunday, the attacks became even more direct. Theodora's neighbor reported men photographing the house from across the street. By the time the police arrived, they had disappeared, but the message was clear. We know where you are. Maybe we should move? Margaret suggested during an emergency meeting, but Theodora shook her head. If we run, they win. We stay. We document. We fight on Monday morning. The hearing for the permanent protective order took place. Patricia had prepared me thoroughly, but nothing could prepare me for entering the courtroom. My extended family occupied one side. Aunts, uncles, cousins, each looking at me with a mixture of pity, outrage, and hostility. In the courtroom, community leaders were also present, all dressed in their finest, watching me with a mixture of pity and disgust. My parents occupied the front row. My mother dabbed her tears with a tissue, while my father, sitting beside her, clenched his fists, struggling to contain his emotions. I sat next to Patricia, trying not to tremble, imagining the entire room scrutinizing my every move. My father's lawyer began, painting a picture of a loving family torn apart by Western corruption. He called character witnesses, the imam from our mosque, family friends, and even my old pediatrician, who testified that during checkups, I had never shown signs of abuse, because I had never been alone with my father. My mother was always responsible for me. I whispered to Patricia, trying to calm myself. When it was our turn, Patricia methodically presented the evidence. Photographs of my injuries showing bruises and scars on my arms and back. Essays where I described years of preparation for forced marriages, every word a hidden message of suffering. Security footage clearly showing my father arriving with forged prescriptions. Then she called Ms. Rodriguez to testify. My teacher calmly took the stand, though I noticed her hands tremble slightly. She recounted finding me reading pamphlets, noticing my weight loss over the years, essays that alarmed her, and all the attempts at control I endured. Did you ever report these concerns? The father's lawyer asked during cross-examination. I initially tried to earn trust. I thought if she felt safe. So you didn't report? You failed to make the mandatory report, he reproached. I reported when I had concrete evidence. Ms. Rodriguez replied firmly. After allegedly influencing her with anti-cultural propaganda, Patricia interjected, defending me. But the damage had already been done. Ms. Rodriguez was painted as a provocateur, a sower of ideas, and the father's lawyer did everything to downplay the significance of the evidence. When it was my turn to testify, Patricia helped me focus on the facts. Burns and beatings. Men promised to my cousin's young brides and the tragedies of the Hamoud Habibi family. These are serious accusations, the judge said. Do you have proof of these deaths? Death certificates are public records, Patricia replied. Both women died of kidney failure before age 23. Each had multiple pregnancies. The father's lawyer stood up. Kidney failure is a medical condition. If you are claiming my client killed them, I am claiming a pattern, Patricia interrupted. Young brides, multiple pregnancies, early deaths, and now they want him to have another child. Objection! The father's lawyer shouted. Counsel is making inflammatory statements without evidence. The judge tried to calm the courtroom, but I noticed doubt slowly creeping into the lawyer's eyes. Without Anna's testimony, without direct confirmation of forced marriages beyond my words, the situation remained critical. Then the courtroom doors unexpectedly opened. A young woman, accompanied by a CPS worker, entered. She appeared around 25, wearing a hijab and limping slightly. Your Honor, the CPS worker said, this witness has information relevant to the case. My father froze. My mother gasped. The woman took the stand. My name is Fatima Habibi, she said quietly. I was Hamoud Habibi's first wife. I am not dead. The courtroom was stunned, and my father's lawyer recoiled as if scalded. I was 15 when I married him, Fatima continued. By age 20, I had 4 children. My kidneys were on the verge of failure. My family spread rumors that I had died, but a nurse at the hospital helped me escape. I hid for 5 years. When I saw the Facebook posts about you, I knew I had to come forward. I couldn't allow him to do to another girl what he did to me. Her testimony was devastating. Frequent pregnancies, beatings when she could not conceive quickly, a family lifestyle that valued reputation over life. They would have preferred to claim I was dead rather than acknowledge the truth. But now the truth stood before them, alive and unyielding. "This is what awaits girls who try to escape death or destruction," Fatima said. My father's lawyer tried to discredit her, but she presented medical records, proof of injuries, kidney damage from multiple pregnancies, and photographs of the fake grave created by the family. When the judge finally issued a ruling, it was clear. The permanent protective order remained in effect. My parents had no contact with me, and any violation would be a criminal offense. My father stood as we left. "You are not my daughter," he said in Arabic. "To us, you are dead." "Please sit down, sir," the judge warned. But my mother also stood, removing her hijab in a gesture of final rejection. "We have no daughter," she announced. "She died today." Walking out of the courtroom felt like walking through fire. Family members turned away as I passed. Someone spat on the ground, others muttered curses. But Fatima gently grabbed my hand. "You are not alone," she whispered. "There are more of us than they want to admit." Outside, Teodora waited in the car with the engine running. As we drove away, I saw my family gathering on the courthouse steps, my father gesturing, holding his phone. "This is not over," Patricia warned. "They will try other tactics. Stay vigilant." She was right. Over the following days, the intimidation escalated. Since they could not contact me directly, they found other ways. My old social media accounts, which I had deactivated, were hacked and reactivated with posts about mental health issues and pleas for help. Photos of me were edited to make me appear unstable, and widely circulated businesses where Teodora worked began refusing service, saying, "We don't want trouble. Your ward's family is influential." Then came the lawyers, not criminal, but civil lawsuits. Defamation, emotional distress, interference with parental rights. All were baseless but costly to defend. They tried to bankrupt us, force compliance. The worst came from other girls. Videos appeared online, showing cousins and relatives claiming that I corrupted them, teaching dangerous ideas. Every statement was carefully scripted to portray me as predatory. "Our parents wanted to sell us," one of the girls said on camera. I recognized the training in their forced words, the fear in their eyes. These were the girls I had tried to save, now turned into instruments against me. Teodora increased security after we discovered footprints in the garden in the morning. The police could prove nothing, but we knew someone was watching the house. "Perhaps you should consider the witness protection program," Margaret suggested during a particularly difficult week. But I thought of Fatima, who hid for 5 years, and of all the other girls still trapped. "Running would mean leaving them behind," I replied. "No, I stay. I fight. I will show them this is possible," I said. And even despite the fear and threats, I knew the fight had only just begun. But now I was not alone, and that made me unstoppable. Every attempt was carefully documented, reported, and dismissed. Yet the pressure from my family drained me physically and mentally, like an endless storm. Every call, every letter, every strange glance over my shoulder reminded me. They wouldn't give up. Suddenly, a call came from Patricia. Her voice was unexpectedly calm, but with a hint of worry. "Anna wants to meet with you." My heart jumped and then sank. "Is this a trap?" I thought, feeling a chill down my spine. "I don't know," Patricia replied. "We'll check." The meeting was arranged in Patricia's office with security present. When Anna entered, I barely recognized her. Her body was thin, her eyes dull, her movements careful, as if something inside her had broken forever. "They forced me to come back," she whispered when we were alone. "They said if I didn't, our little sister would be hurt." "Anna, I'm so sorry," I said, feeling a sharp pain for what she had endured. She suddenly stood up and spoke quickly, like on cue. "Listen carefully. There's something you must know. They are planning something. I heard my father talking. They decided to use you as an example. That's good, I whispered, but the tears in her eyes told me otherwise. No, Anna said. Now they want to make you a warning to other girls, so everyone will understand. If you betray the family, the consequences will be brutal. What do you mean? She sighed deeply. I don't know exactly. They talked about your new school and a message everyone will get. It could happen this week. My heart froze. I don't know more, she added. They don't trust me anymore. She squeezed my hands as if transferring part of her strength. Be careful. Change everything. Change your routes, your routines, even the ways you leave the house. They are watching every step you take. Security quickly escorted her out, but before leaving, Anna quietly handed me a small piece of paper with an address. She whispered with her lips, "Help them." That evening, Teodora and I sat at the table, spreading out a map and planning every step. I would take a few days off from school, change routes, never be alone. Yet even this plan felt fragile against their determination. The next morning, Wednesday, I was in the kitchen when Teodora's alarm suddenly went off. Not the perimeter alarm, but the sensor in your room, she said through the phone. Barricade yourself in the bathroom and call 911 immediately. I heard glass breaking, male voices shouting in Arabic. These were not my father or uncles. They were smarter than to show up themselves. They were hired men, distant relatives, or community members willing to do the dirty work. The bathroom door was heavy with a reliable lock, but I knew it wouldn't hold forever. They were checking the room, calling my name, promising they just wanted to talk. The police will be there in 3 minutes, Teodora shouted through the door. Hold on! The doorknob twisted, nearly breaking. Another hit, and the door began to bend. I pressed against the wall, looking for anything to defend myself. A can of hairspray. Scissors? Not nearly enough for adult men. Then the siren sounded. God, the sirens. The pounding stopped. The footsteps faded. The doors slammed. When the police arrived, the men were gone. Only broken glass and muddy footprints remained. They need to relocate you immediately, Margaret said, arriving in less than an hour. This place is no longer safe. Packing my things, I thought about Anna's warning, the address she had given, about all the girls still trapped, believing they had no choice. I want to do something first, I told Teodora. Before we leave, I have to make a call. I dialed Miss Rodriguez. Remember those pamphlets? I think it's time to do even more. So much more. Because they can chase me, threaten me, search for me, but they cannot silence the knowledge I've spread. Every girl who learns about her rights is a victory they cannot undo. The fight for my freedom is far from over, but now I knew. I am not alone, and together we are stronger than they think. As we left Teodora's compromised safe house for a new, more remote location, I felt something in my chest far stronger than fear. A steadfast certainty that I had already won the greatest victory. I had proven to myself that it was possible to say no, choose my own path, survive despite rejection, and build a new life. And I knew. This message of hope would reach other girls, even if my family rejected me completely. The new safe house was 40 miles from the previous one. A small apartment above a retired police officer's garage. Someone who had already helped girls from our community whose families would not stop pursuing them. Margaret explained that security here was even tighter. Motion sensors in every hallway, surveillance cameras, panic buttons in every room. I spent the first night staring at the address, which had now become a symbol of our renewed struggle. Anna had given me the address of a house in a remote area where another group of girls from our community already lived, who needed to know their rights. I understood. My mission went far beyond my own safety. The next morning, Miss Rodriguez arrived with boxes of materials. We decided to create information packets, not just pamphlets, but full instructions hidden inside school notebooks. Phone numbers were written as math problems, legal information disguised as stories and exercises. The plan was to distribute them discreetly through school nurses and teachers to girls in at-risk situations. While we worked, Patricia shared news that briefly distracted me from my task. The men who had broken into Teodora's house had been identified through fingerprints. Some of the relatives on my father's side had fled the state, but arrest warrants had already been issued against them. And your family filed an appeal against the protective order, Patricia added. They claim it's allegedly religious discrimination. We worked on the packets for 3 days. Each contained a hidden pocket with emergency contact numbers, instructions on rights, and step-by-step escape plans. We prepared 50 sets, knowing most would be destroyed or taken by parents. But even one girl receiving the information could save her life. On Thursday, something happened that changed the mood of the day. A social worker brought a teenager, her eyes wide with fear, hands trembling. She belonged to another family in our community, but her story was familiar. She was to be given to a 47-year-old man, and it had all started only a week ago. I found your notebook, she whispered to me, catching my gaze. It was hidden in my cousin's room. Those same math problems turned out to be phone numbers. My heart soared. The information was already spreading beyond our control. Margaret arranged temporary shelter for her while I sat beside her and explained what to expect next. The fear in her eyes gradually shifted to determination. She realized she had options and was no longer alone. That evening, my new phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't want to pick up, but something inside made me answer. Don't hang up, a young voice quickly said. There are 6 of us. We found your information. We need help. I grabbed a pen and hurriedly wrote down everything she said. The girls were aged 12 to 16. 3 of them already promised to older men. They were meeting secretly, exchanging pages from the notebook hidden in family rooms. Can you contact teachers or school counselors? One of them asked. We're trying, but our parents constantly watch us, she replied in a trembling voice. After what you did, everyone is scared. I gave them specific phrases they could use, listed responsive educators in various schools, and made them repeat all emergency numbers. I explained about courtroom security cameras and how to file emergency orders properly. What if we get caught? One of the girls asked. Then try again, I replied firmly. And keep going until you are free. On Friday morning, Patricia called me with urgent news. Your father's lawyer filed an emergency motion. They claim you're interfering in minors' lives and putting them in danger. They want to open a criminal case. I took a deep breath, understanding this was just an attempt to intimidate me and stop all the work we had begun. Yet inside me was an unwavering determination. Our fight was not about me. It was about every girl still trapped, every life we could save. They're accusing you of teaching girls about their legal rights, Patricia explained, sitting beside me in the safe house. They call it corrupting minors and interfering with parental rights. It won't hold up legally, but the goal is clear. To scare you, make you stay silent, and stop your work. But fear could no longer stop me. I felt that every word I spoke, every action I took, now mattered more than ever. That same day, I met with a journalist. Ms. Rodriguez knew someone specializing in human rights stories and underground initiatives. She agreed to write a piece about the network of girls sharing information, protecting themselves, and highlighting a problem that exists right here in our country. No photos, no real names, just facts, stories, and proof that it was real. Just knowing the story would be published gave me a sense of victory. On Saturday, unexpected mail arrived. A package with no return address sent from another state. Inside were photos and a letter in trembling handwriting. The photos showed a young woman in medical scrubs smiling at a graduation ceremony. The letter was from Fatima. I wanted you to see that survival is possible. 5 years of hidden life, and I was able to build my life, become a nurse, and find love with someone who values me. Be strong, she wrote. I cried, holding the photos, realizing that survival could grow into something bigger than mere existence. Sunday was calm, almost idyllic, until Margaret called in the evening. 3 more girls reached out for help today. Different families, but all received information packets. CPS is opening an investigation. The system's response was swift, giving hope. On Monday, my father's lawyer held a press conference outside the courthouse. He presented me as a troubled teen destroying families and influencing innocent children. Several community leaders stood behind him, nodding seriously, supporting his words. She's targeting vulnerable girls, he told the cameras. filling their heads with lies about supposedly loving families who only want to preserve their culture. But Patricia was ready. She gathered statements from teachers, social workers, and counselors who had noticed such cases for years, but hadn't known how to help. The retired police officer where I was staying agreed to testify, explaining the methods of pressure and manipulation used by families. The breakthrough came on Tuesday. Online appeared a video. Marja was not alone. 4 other girls from her group sat beside her. Together, they repeated how I had tried to protect them from harmful family practices. The girls spoke about the pressure, fear, and injustice they had endured. "Our culture forces us to hate ourselves," one of them said directly. I recognized the training and carefully chosen words, but to outsiders, it looked like a cry for help. "Stop watching," the retired officer advised, closing the laptop. "They're trying to break you." By Wednesday, everything accelerated. Patricia called early. The journalist's editor had received legal threats regarding the article. My father's lawyer demanded retraction and threatened massive lawsuits. Then Margaret brought more news that made me shiver. One of the girls who had called last week was now at risk. Her family had discovered her actions, and she was scheduled to be moved to another state tomorrow. "Who?" I asked, though I already guessed. "Samira, 16, the bravest, the eldest, the one taking the biggest risk to escape. She was supposed to meet with the counselor today. I instantly felt the pressure of time. Action was needed immediately. Margaret had already warned authorities, but the statistics were grim. Girls taken across state lines rarely returned. That day, I made a decision. Despite all objections and threats, I would go to court. Not inside. It would be too dangerous. But I could be nearby so Samira could see me if she managed to escape and know she was not alone. The retired officer drove us to a small parking lot near the courthouse, where we could watch the building without unnecessary risk. 2 hours passed without incident, calm yet tense. Then a van appeared and I saw her, Samira, standing between 2 adults, quietly escorted toward the entrance. This wasn't for her protection, but for formal paperwork. Samira's eyes immediately met mine through the car window. I pressed my palm to the glass and whispered one word. "Run." She tried to move, but her aunts held her in place. Yet, after passing through security, Samira executed a clever maneuver from my book. She suddenly fell to the floor and began screaming in abdominal pain. A classic tactic, but it worked perfectly. The security personnel reacted instantly, calling for medical assistance, and in the chaos, Samira grabbed an officer's hand. I couldn't hear her words, but I saw how his reaction changed. He spoke into his radio, and more officers quickly arrived. Her aunts tried to lift her, insisting she was fine, but Samira refused to let go of the officer's hand and kept screaming. "We need to move immediately," the officer said, guiding the car. "We can't waste time." As we drove away, I noticed my uncle stepping out of the van, phone pressed to his ear, hands gesturing as if giving commands. Their attempt to take another girl had failed. Thursday turned into a marathon of legal meetings. Patricia prepared cases against the intimidation tactics, documenting every threat, every attempt at harassment. The journalist found a publisher willing to risk publishing the story, and more girls came forward. Not just from our community. Rumors about the network spread quickly. "You started a process they cannot stop," Patricia said as we sat over documents. "And even if they try, the effect has already begun." On Friday morning, sirens woke me. Not unusual in this area, but the noise was very close. The retired officer rose, checking the cameras. "Stay clear," he ordered, hand on his weapon, scanning the footage carefully. Through the window, I saw smoke and flames. A car in the parking lot, which hadn't been there yesterday, was burning. Firefighters worked while police found something in the trunk. Nearly burned dolls and white wedding dresses. The message was clear. "We can scare you." "We need to move you again immediately," Margaret said upon arriving. But I felt exhausted from constant escapes. "No," I said. "They want me to be afraid. To hide. I will no longer give them that satisfaction." Arguments lasted for hours. The decision? I would stay, but with enhanced security. Rotating retired officers, panic buttons directly linked to 911, and changing sleeping locations each night. On Saturday, an unexpected hope arrived. The article was published online earlier than planned and within hours went viral. Comments flooded with messages from women who had escaped similar situations, offering support, resources, and contacts. Organizations I had never heard of offered help in scaling the network. The most inspiring message came from Anna, a short text from an unknown number. 12 girls across 3 states already had notebooks, making copies and passing them along. "You did it," it read in one sentence, and it meant more than 1,000 words. Sunday was quiet, but I knew this was just the calm before the next strike. My family could not accept such defiance without a final act. This was not physical violence, but something worse in their world. A formal announcement in the community bulletin. I was formally disowned, not just by my parents, but by the entire extended family. My name was erased from family trees, photos removed from homes. Anyone who spoke with me risked the same judgment. In their world, this was worse than death. It was complete erasure, denial, the annulment of my existence. Yet reading that announcement, I felt something unexpected. Amid the words of disownment and insult, there was a sense of freedom. They could no longer control me, and I was free to choose, to act, and to live my own life. Relief filled me. They had played their last card, spent all their resources, and I was still standing, breathing, living, and unbroken. On Tuesday, a wave of responses came from girls watching me from afar, filled with hope and fear. They saw that even the harshest threats had not broken me. That same day, 3 more emergency protective orders were filed. 2 girls were placed in shelters, provided with safe housing and psychological support. The third was caught at the edge of escape, but managed to tell her teachers about her situation before her family could take her away. On Wednesday, I met with leaders of a human rights organization who decided to join our network. They wanted to formalize the Freedom Network, creating a support system with legal aid, safe houses, and counselors. "We'll call it the Freedom Network," one woman said, her eyes shining with determination. "Everything you started with your notebooks will now become a system, hidden in plain sight." Thursday was my court day for the renewal of the Permanent Protective Order. When I entered the courtroom, it wasn't filled with family. This time, there were girls and women who had escaped, social workers, teachers who had noticed the warning signs. The sense of support was incredible. My father's lawyer made a final attempt. He claimed that my renunciation of my family proved that the family did not want contact. The judge quickly dismissed this claim. Renunciation does not erase the crimes or threats that were already committed. "The order remains in effect," she declared firmly, confirming my protection. As we left the courthouse, Fatima was waiting on the sidewalk. She had traveled 3 hours to show me I was not alone. Words weren't necessary. We simply hugged, and that moment, captured in photographs, was proof that our fight mattered. On Friday, the Freedom Network held its first official meeting. There were 15 volunteers, including Ms. Rodriguez and Theodora. We developed routes for distributing information packages, marked safe houses, and emergency response protocols. What began with a few notebooks and small school pamphlets was becoming a system capable of saving lives. That evening, my phone rang. An unknown number. The voice of a girl trembled with fear and hope. "I found your notebook," she whispered. "Can you help me?" "Yes," I replied, taking a pen. "Tell me everything." As she spoke, I thought of all the girls still trapped, still believing they had no choice. The network was growing. Information spreading through schools, shelters, whispered messages, and notebooks. Some would escape, others not yet. But every girl who learned about her rights gained a victory. My family had officially erased me from their lives, but I had become someone they could not destroy. A symbol that their daughters could choose a different path. That freedom and knowledge are stronger than fear. This message would travel further. Whispered, through notebooks and brave girls risking everything for their lives. The fight isn't over. Perhaps it would never fully end. But as I passed on life-saving knowledge to another frightened girl, I felt the most important truth. We had already won the most important battle. We had shown that saying no was possible, and that no changes everything. It had only been a week since the court ruling when I first realized that silence could be more dangerous than open attacks. The phone rang more often with new voices of girls who had found my notebooks. But along with them came other calls, strange, silent, with someone just listening, then abruptly hanging up. On Friday morning, an envelope without a return address lay at the apartment door. Inside was a photograph. Me leaving a store, a bag in my hands, head bowed. Someone was watching. On the back, a single word was written, soon. I clenched the photograph in my hands and understood. This battle was far from over.